right, so we are live at Advancing Prefab 2023 here in Phoenix, and I'm joined by Jenny now. Jenny, why don't you tell a little bit about you, kind of your background and how you ended up here at Advancing Prefab.
Yeah, it's a little interesting. My role at the Bold company is Design Integration Director. I am a licensed architect. People make fun of me because I lead with that, but I happen to work for a construction company that provides prefab and modular solutions. We're a 135-year-old construction company, so this is kind of a newer thing for them, and I started just over 2 years ago. I think I've cut my teeth in breaking rules and talking to people down the value stream to make what I do more valuable to them, not realizing that's what I was doing. I just thought that made more sense, but also sticking with the chain of command, so not getting in trouble. So I'm a middle child. I spent a lot of my life breaking rules and not getting in trouble. That's like sort of just the skill that I've developed over time. So that's what brought me here, I think.
Nice. Yeah. I'm a baby, so
oh, you would not know my experience.
I can break the rules and still not get in trouble. But
oh, that's true. Yeah.
I'm a baby and only boy too, so I'm not saying I'm spoiled.
We can talk later. Yeah. No, we have one of those too.
Nice. So how does a licensed architect, how does that kind of change your mindset? It's different in the modular construction world. There's not a ton of licensed architects kind of around. How does that give you a different lens to look through?
My role is actually being the thread that connects design with manufacturing and construction. We know that our industry is broken. There are so many barriers between just design and construction. Throw fabrication in there and people just get really confused. And so even if people are all rowing in the same direction, we have so much baggage that we don't even realize we have anymore that prevents us from understanding what each other is saying at a very basic level, and that at all levels of detail. So my role has always been not so much the design architect, but more the code compliance person, interested in making sure that what we do is a slam dunk in terms of safety and quality for the occupants and also for the owner. And so I've also played a role in my past as a program manager, which is really owner's rep. So playing all those different roles, I get to see the pain points for a lot of different aspects of the value stream. So being a licensed architect, I've been responsible for code compliance, really. That's what your stamp does to make sure that you have healthy spaces, or at least code minimum healthy spaces. So that I'm really proud that I bring that in, and that you just kind of have to take me a little more seriously because I spent all that time getting licensed. But that I can speak to architects in a language that they understand, but I also speak the language of fabrication. Yeah.
So how do others start to kind of bridge that gap between on that language barrier between architect all the way down the value chain?
You know what? It's being willing to admit when you don't know what the heck someone's saying. I mean, that's really honestly what it is. It's
like, please define that term. But you just,
right, there's so many acronyms in what we do on a daily basis. Just the other day, someone said EDI, and I'm like looking up what that means and not paying attention to what he's actually saying because I don't know. I got stuck there.
Yeah.
I tell people I get stuck a lot of time. I'm okay with putting myself in that space. Other people don't want to look stupid. I spent a lot of time in my 52 years on this earth not wanting to look stupid, and now I don't care. Like I think after you hit 50, you just kind of like, F it. I'm just going to do what makes sense for the greater good, and not care for that moment in time when people are going to be like, well, she doesn't know, because I've realized that if I don't know, probably a handful of other people also don't know, and I'm actually doing them a favor by raising my hand. On occasion, I'm the only one who didn't know, but it's okay.
Yeah, well, and sometimes I find that people throw out terms that they're meaning one way, but in their context that they say, they actually meant it a different way, and when you get them to stop and kind of put words to what they were just saying in greater detail, they're like, oh, I didn't mean that at all.
It's the editorial, actually. Like, even if they know exactly what that term means, it might mean something different in the new environment, or for a different person coming from a different part of the process for design or construction. So It's really important, I think, that we understand each other because we have so many years of just protecting ourselves from each other instead of working as a team. And now everything here is going to be about early trade partner involvement, get the GC on board quickly. But it doesn't matter if they're at the table if they're not actually talking.
Yeah. So how do you start reducing the friction that's there in that communication side, but also just the interpersonal dynamics?
It's tough. The pain is real. I think that we need to sort of see each other baseline as human beings, and that's really how I've overcome difficulty in my career, not getting along with someone like a client. I gotta forget about all the things that bother me about that person or their role or whatever, and just remember that they're human beings. And so we use humor. We break bread. We do these icebreakers where you ask a silly question, and then suddenly, oh, that's the person who saw Star Wars as their first movie in the movie theater, or drove a car with white hubcaps. It's just, there's more ways to relate to each other than our roles that we play on the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you start with icebreakers too. I do that with my teams all the time. Let's start with the most random question possible, because it creates that human-to-human connection, and you create those commonalities that you had no idea existed before.
It's really disarming, because we can say all day we want to create a psychologically safe space for people to share, or we want to leave titles at the door, but people don't actually know how to do that.
Right.
Until you make a connection that's something that they weren't expecting.
Right. And the truth is you probably can't do that in the confinement of work. And what I mean by that, you have to step outside of your kind of 9-to-5 day job hat and relate, take the time to get to know the person behind the employee. And as you said, that human connection, I think that's incredibly valuable.
It's so hard during COVID or during remote and hybrid work, so we try to embrace in person as much as possible. But when we're in a hybrid environment, really, what last workshop that I facilitated for industrialized construction for one of our project teams, realized that there were going to be maybe 6 or 8 people virtually, but the vast majority was in the room. I said, everybody, open your computer, put your face on the screen, so that we can engage with everybody. And it's quite successful, but if you don't stick to that rigor, then you're going to lose people, and then if their face isn't on the screen, they're doing something else. I'm guilty of it. It's just too tempting. I'm just going to check this one email, and all of a sudden you're just off on La La Land.
Or just put the cell phone right up underneath.
Oh yeah, just like,
I've never done that in a meeting, but I've heard people do that. What do you think is the biggest trend happening right now this year for prefab?
We're talking about, I think like last year was more productization, and now we're moving beyond that to like program, and that's actually what we're doing as a company as well, both internally and externally. I get to be the facilitator of discussions and sort of the word that comes to mind is babysitter, but that's not what I mean. I shepherd and I nurture or whatever. I see internally, and so I get to take project teams and just align on what we mean, and so that we have a one bolt kind of approach. But externally, our serial builders and sort of our national clients are understanding the difficulty and pain of the buying experience of buildings, and that has happened for a while. But now that we have supply chain issues and labor shortage, it's already gone. We have these problems that are insurmountable. Now owners are finally seeing, okay, if I have 20 clinics that I need to build in rural areas, why don't I just build the same one over and over again? I'll put all my effort into making that one design really awesome. And we're doing it in a modular fashion, so we could do it where labor is plentiful or somewhat plentiful, in a safe environment, 70 degrees and sunny every day, and able to then just adapt it to each site location. And it could be in a rural area, it could be in a mountain, could be in a city. But the owners are understanding that their program can make the difference. If we keep doing one-offs, we're not getting the benefit of sort of cost, because you're going to have to design it over and over again. But once you take that sort of design out, like the car in Alex Janofsky's speech just now, we can finally sort of start rinsing and repeating, and then give that value back to the client. So going from projects to either products or programs, that's really the main theme this year.
Do you see that mindset shift picking up more steam on owners? Because it's definitely a 180 switch from how the industry has worked historically.
Yeah. Well, we do a lot of healthcare, and I've done healthcare with owners that, and they're the serial builders, healthcare, higher education, and then pharma and that kind of thing. Data centers, they're all focus areas this year. And so with the Affordable Care Act, we're still, that was 14 years ago. We're still catching up.
It's crazy that it's been that long.
And the impacts of that are still, the planning stages of 3-4 years ago, they're happening now. So neighborhood clinics, and these are the trends because healthcare is also expensive, but when you take it out of the very expensive medical center core and put it out into the neighborhoods, how do you do that? So we have a lot of also going to the digital marketplace. So we no longer are buying things in big box stores. So empty big box stores, needs for clinic in neighborhoods, these are placed in places where people want to buy toys all the time. So we're able to embrace these health systems wanting to get out into the neighborhoods and have their stamp everywhere in their regions or across the whole country. So that's super exciting, and it's growing into sort of higher risk occupancy buildings. So first it was clinics, and we're still doing that, but now ambulatory surgery centers and things where you would normally go down to the medical center for, now the higher risk procedures are moving out into the neighborhoods.
How do you get over the hurdle of people wanting everything to be totally unique and be very customized to their needs while still doing modular? Because they can live hand in hand for sure. But most people don't see that.
That's a big myth that I don't care how fancy an architect firm you are, you're still designing to ADA standards in a bathroom. Gravity still works as gravity. Space is still space, and so we're not doing crazy bathrooms. In fact, you can have 50 bathrooms in a project, and probably 2 or 3 types could cover all of them. And why do you need to redraw that every time? So we are actually drawing them as blocks, I think, but then we're modifying that around columns and stuff. So we just have to take the next step and say, I don't need to draw this bathroom again, or I don't need to draw this patient room again. We want standards, and actually owners want standards, but owners are the worst because they'll say, I want standards, but in this case, I want this. In this case, this doctor is very particular. And so it's them understanding their mission and the value add for standardization in a more rigorous way. We're able to start doing that because they're like, well, we have standards, but why isn't it helping? Well, we're going to tell you. You want to rinse and repeat, we're going to help you do that. If you're going to buy a toaster, I'm not going to chop off half the toaster to make it a one slice toaster. You get the whole toaster. So let's start with a toaster and build around it instead of trying to please everyone in ways that don't really matter. But then you still get to do different materials and colors and add-ons and this and that, but we could standardize those things as well.
So how do you tap into the data evolution aspect that's happening in construction to really pull that into the informed design?
We're doing some fun things, and granted, they don't let me touch the Revit model, and I don't get really involved with BIM. I just sort of take the Navisworks model and look around. But we are getting smarter about connecting the design team, and this is architects, directly to carpenters, and having them ask them questions, our carpenters and estimators, on some of our projects, so they can say, okay, what do you want from the model that I can set up now? Because slowly they're evolving as well in terms of knowing what they need to draw that adds value for the builder, the maker, and the estimator. And so what we've been doing is a single source of truth anyway, but sometimes it's still dumb lines. So getting away from dumb lines and being intentional about everything we draw, but also looking for ways to be efficient. We have to draw everything, and we're doing modeling or detailing in the model, live detailing, that means you have to draw a lot.
Right.
But that initial investment, everybody sort of agrees what level we're going to go into, and then we take a stab at it, and then we have that feedback loop quickly. And that's why products are really amazing, because we could do one feedback loop, improve on the product, and then really tighten it as it goes along. We can't do that with traditional projects.
Yeah. So do you guys embrace the Scrum methodology a lot then?
So
What it sounds like?
yeah, it's interesting. We work with Felipe, Engineer Manriquez, and he is Scrum Master galore for the U.S. and big deal with LCI, Lean Construction Institute. So he internally will say, anybody wants to do Scrum, just like tap me, call me, like we'll get on Teams and get going on it. But I was talking to him about my experience with healthcare and how I ran some projects, and I had daily phasing, and I had like real visual clues about what spaces were complete and not, and transparency of work and all that kind of thing. And he's like, "You're doing Scrum," and I'm like, "I don't know, what's the Scrum thing?" Yeah. So then applying that to what we do now, it's super exciting. We use Trello. Shout out to Trello. I have been using Trello since like 2016 because I had a startup with a software person from Silicon Valley. We had a startup architectural design firm, and they wanted our help in helping to develop their software. So we used the Trello board for the Scrum kind of thing, and it was amazing.
Right.
But like it's so easy.
Yeah.
So we could apply it to many different things, but we're trying to introduce that more into our process. A lot of what we do is visual anyway, but that in particular has that tool. Use it for problem solving and work planning.
Very cool. So switching gears a bit on the sustainability side of construction, how does that factor in with modular? How would you kind of position that?
Well, and that's not my forte per se, but I know that with one of our recent volumetric projects, it was a 24 module, 16 bed observation room expansion project. It's a building that we fabricated in multiple facilities down a particular factory line. We were assembling pieces and parts. And there's a metric that our client, Advocadora Health, has around recycling materials. And so we're meeting all the metrics, and they were trying to measure how much recycling we had done, and we did almost none because we didn't have waste to recycle. And so that metric didn't work for us, and that was kind of, but cool,
Right.
So
that's a good problem.
Yeah, and so when we rely on our trade partners to do pre-assembled sub-assemblies, they manage their waste, and they can plan more efficiently around what length of pipe needs to be, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert with what they do, but so by the time it gets to us, it's all super efficient. And the other piece of it is, we focus on reducing waste in every way, and so we kit materials together. So we have the day's work materials at the station where it's going to be performed, and people don't have to wander around hunting and pecking to find that thing that's missing. We can't eliminate that completely, but it's greatly reduced, and so the efficiency of just movement is increased a lot. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved the line Amy said in her keynote of the digital waste exponentially impacts the physical waste aspect of it.
Yeah.
And it's totally true. If you're able to really clean up the data side of things and get a smooth digital workflow, then it has huge real world impact on what actually happens on the
It's
the
so
job
cool
site.
it's logical, but I can't wait for some of the data to come in that sort of proves that out too. And I'm going to be looking for that on their platforms for training internally for industrialized construction for our organization.
Yeah, for sure. So switching gears kind of one more time, how do we bring in new fresh blood into the industry or to come to great events like this?
Exciting that some of our partners are bringing more people from their companies, and they, like KLH, they brought, I think, 8 people this year, and a lot of them are younger. I think it's a great investment. These things are not cheap to come to,
Right.
but so having that commitment across different organizations. We brought 14 people this year, and I think that a third of them were sort of like the younger generation. We got to start young, investing in their knowledge and education. But I also am very interested. I'm one of the leaders in the Chicago LCI community of practice, and what we're focusing on is actually in the trades. So as the old guard is retiring, they're kind of saying like, well, this is the way that I've always done it, and you need to learn, and we're losing this way of thinking. I'm like, oh, we don't need that old guard way of thinking. I mean, I really respect people with like skills and who are experts in their trade, but we have to stop pointing fingers at each other and blaming each other and like taking the blame off ourselves. So starting with apprentices, one thing that we're trying to do is to have programming available for apprentices on lean or industrialized construction that is part of their curriculum that they actually get credit for. And so before they go out into the field and sort of just relearn old things, they are sort of armed with new ways of thought. Say like, hey, well, why do you do it that way? And maybe we could do it this way. And so that's one way that we can really reinvest in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think a big opportunity for us is taking the industry knowledge that those 30-year veteran plus have in the trades and bringing that into the software. But as the young generation is coming in, and hopefully more and more, they're bringing in that mindset of let's try new things, and why can we not do this digitally, or why can we not pull up our phone? And going back to the expected experience of we do this in our personal lives of, Amy's example of the pizza.
Apps,
Why are we not doing this in construction? So I think that there's some good excitement, some good energy there.
I think that it's interesting because some people come in and they don't realize how painful it's been for all of us, and we feel like we wear it as a badge. So I mean, the 30-year veterans, we really need to engage them as well. Sometimes they're the ones who speak out the most against it at first, and then just like, no, wait a second, this could have been like this for me, like let's change it now. And so it's really exciting just to open up those lines of communication, but we have to give people the safety to actually say those things without repercussion.
Have you heard of the concept of reverse mentoring? I love that.
I'm a big-time mentor, so in fact, we were talking to, when we're trying to do DEI programs with owners, we talk a lot about mentor-protege programs, and I don't actually like that hierarchy because I think that we have a lot to learn from the future of our workforce. So I'm not going to say we have this great thing to offer you that maybe you don't care about or doesn't work for you. Let's learn about our new workforce who wants to do things in apps and wants to do things more efficiently, and maybe doesn't care about some of the things that we care about because we don't want to like recreate the dinosaur, make it better dinosaur. And so I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, I agree. I think it goes back to opening up those communication lines and treating everybody as human beings. How we started the conversation.
It's harder
there.
Said than done. Or
easier
said than done.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're fighting human nature somewhat there, but
we're still humans in the end, so
absolutely.
I'm not going to overcome that, but that's okay. That's a good thing.
Slowly but surely, we'll chip away, make some progress. But so, what does innovation mean to you?
Innovation means taking things apart and putting them back together in a different way. Having the courage to say something doesn't work, and being like ready to talk about how to fix it. I'm really not one to sit there and just complain. I don't have a lot of patience for that. If you're going to complain, you better be part of a solution or just sort of keep it to yourself. So, innovation, I think, is the courage to actually do things to improve on what doesn't work.
Yeah. I like adding the courage aspect to it because there's so many people that have great ideas and then never do anything with them.
Well, I feel lucky that I get to focus on this every day, all day, because, I had a choice at some point to continue with the innovation of industrialized construction and prefab or go back to delivering healthcare design as I know it, and I have this 1,000-mile stare now that I'm like, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
We're just going to keep moving.
Yeah, I like it. How do people find out more on what you guys are doing at Bolt or connect with you?
Feel free to find me on LinkedIn. I use that more for the professional connections. We can go to our website, bolt.com, BOLDT.com. Or they have an app here for connecting and changing cards. So I welcome any conversation.
Awesome. Well, final question for you. If I could give you all construction power, you could snap your fingers, innovate one thing in the industry, what would you pick to innovate?
Oh, geez, that's a hard one.
That's why I save it for the end. Really get you thinking right at the end.
You know what? I would really change the face of who our leadership is and make it way more diverse and look a lot more like me or people like me, and sort of like take out the barriers to that kind of growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a huge hole in the construction industry of being able to bring in those diversity of thought and different perspectives and different experiences.
Yeah, I mean, our backgrounds are so different, and I can't tell you how many times I've had my favorite conversations were when someone said something that I just didn't expect because we just happened to be chatting about some problem that I was having or whatnot. The more we talk to the more people with more diverse backgrounds, just enriches us. We just can't be afraid of that. I think that ultimately we're afraid. Like fear is what keeps us back from growth. And so, if I had a superpower, that's what I would use it for.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Well, Jenny, thanks so much for taking the time and joining the conversation on the podcast today.
I appreciate it.